What's up, everybody? That is the quickest intro in the business. Happy hump day. Welcome to another edition of Giants Collective, and the band is back together again. Good to have Adriana, Anthony, and the entertainer back with yours truly, the Bad Diggy Dizzle. Tonight's episode of Giants Collective, of course, always powered by BetUS. You go over there, check out BetUS. They have a great promotion going. As always, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out there. If you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple, that would be great. You can also check us out on TikTok and Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, man. A lot of posts speak, but a lot of people are watching the videos, guys. There's like thousands of views on these little shorts that are on there, but we've only got like 75 followers. So make sure you guys are following on Instagram. And if you want to become a member, you just click that join button. You get those cool emojis. You get monthly member messages, get your name in the outro, and all that good stuff. So a lot of stuff going on here as we get into the middle of June, where, again, there's just not a ton going on in the NFL. But we'll start with some things in OTAs. I don't know. John, I know you do videos. Anthony, I know you do videos. Chris, I know this is time of year you usually take a little time off, and I don't blame you. I've done a couple of videos myself. And I get this. I don't know if you guys are getting this on your videos or not. So we're going to start with Adriana, as always. Jackson Dart supposedly is struggling. This is who I hear. He's struggling in OTAs, and the Giants probably should have taken Jaire Sanders. Is there any weight to OTA? I know we've discussed this before, I'm sure, but I mean, does it really matter what goes on in OTAs? Does it matter? He could throw 7 interceptions. He could throw 7 touchdowns. Does it make a difference?
No, it's like Dane Belton, who has 5 interceptions at this point. Like, do we think that as soon as the season starts, that means that Dane Belton's going to be the starter and he's going to start raking in interceptions? No, he's been on the team for how many years? And, I'm sure he has good OTAs, and that is what it is. Like, right now, there's no tackling, there's no pads. They're only doing 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. And majority of the notes that I have seen from the Giants website, because the media is only there once a week, don't even tell you who the quarterback is that threw the interception. So the only reason that we know that Jackson Dart threw 2 interceptions last week was because the media reported it. So when all of these safeties and cornerbacks are catching interceptions and making tip balls and all of that, no one knows who the quarterback is. For all we know, it's Tommy DeVito every single time. I don't think it's anything to be worried about. From everything that I've listened to from Kafka and the other coordinators when they speak right now is very basic. They're working on getting the rookies up to speed so they know how to prepare their bodies and learn the playbook. They're going through installs, and I was laughing to myself because there's a quote that Mike Kafka says where he said to the media, right now we're really going through the installs and we see how the players go about learning them. And then we base that on whether or not we can up the volume or if we have to rake it back and see, what guys need help with, who's struggling, whatever. But the reality is this is a learning period for everyone, especially the rookies. So if Jackson Dart throws a couple interceptions in practice, who gives a shit? Like, he's not our starter week 1, number 1. Number 2, it's literally OTAs. Let's wait until they get some pads on and see when he's in with the ones if he gets mauled by Brian Burns. Then maybe we could say, okay, maybe I'm a little bit worried. Maybe I'm still not, because he's not going to be the starter week 1. Like, this is why so many of us are advocating for Jackson Dart to sit unless he forces his way through and proves to everyone that he's better than Russell Wilson. And when that happens, pigs will also fly.
Yeah, well, we hope eventually he's better than Russell Wilson. But yes, right now, pigs will fly.
Yeah, I'm talking about next. I think next year, yes, he'll be the starter. But week 1, I'm get lost, people.
Yeah, he's not going to be a starter week 1. I don't care how well he plays in training camp. It's not going to matter. That's not what they drafted him for. It's not what they brought Russell Wilson in here for. Anthony, let me ask you this. If the roles were reversed, because, again, I think some fans just go on your page. And, again, I don't know if you guys see this on your videos. I see it on mine all the time about Jaire. Maybe there's just a couple of people that just want to always mention Jaire Sanders. And I look at, you can see the comments that they leave. Like, you can see their other comments. And a couple of people, just everything they leave is Jaire Sanders. Do you think it would make any difference if Jaire Sanders threw 7 interceptions and Jackson Dart threw 7 touchdowns? And people be saying, oh, the Giants definitely did the right thing by drafting Jackson Dart instead of Jaire Sanders. At this point of the year, does it matter what these quarterbacks do at OTAs?
No, it doesn't matter at all. They're all learning. And I listen to the Rich Eisen show a lot. Do you know who's taking the starting reps for the Browns? It's
Dylan
Dylan Gabriel. Yeah. So
Good.
who gives a shit how Shedeur Sanders is doing with the third team? I don't understand why that's even a talking point. Like, why do Giants fans care about that? I have no idea. He's not on the Giants, so they shouldn't care about him. And it's not going to matter what he does until he gets onto a regular season field, if he even gets onto a regular season field this season, because the third round kid that they took in front of him, Dylan Gabriel, is earning the reps with the starters while Joe Flacco rests or whatever. Joe Flacco is going to be the starter there, or Kenny Pickett, and then Dylan Gabriel, and then the fourth guy up would be Shedeur Sanders. So doesn't even matter. And listen, Jackson Dart, maybe he throws a pick here or there in practice, but isn't that what practice is for? It's for sharpening your skills, and it's for ironing out any flaws in your game. And we know that Brian Daboll intentionally likes to confuse the quarterbacks because he thinks that failure is the only way to get better. And I agree with that philosophy. So if we're having Jackson Dart go up against some really intricate defenses already at OTAs, that's going to help him once he gets to training camp, get up to speed faster. It's going to help him when he gets onto the preseason field and eventually one day when he is on the regular season field. So I like to see that the quarterbacks, not only Dart, even Russ is throwing a bunch of picks. Jameis is throwing a bunch of picks. This is all good. These guys throwing picks now is a good thing because it means that they're being aggressive and they're actually trying to push the ball in the tight windows and they're taking chances with these passes. Obviously, you want to see them throw touchdowns as well, but they are. For every interception that they throw, they're probably throwing at least 2 touchdowns, according to all these practice reports. So I've only seen really positive things to take away from the OTAs and the practice reports. And obviously, Minicamp kicks off, I think, this weekend. So keep an eye on that as well. But generally speaking, I have a positive vibe with the New York Giants. That's not going anywhere. And nothing at OTAs is ever going to change that because OTAs really is just flag football, basically, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I'll say is you make the mistakes now, like you mentioned. You're supposed to learn from them. I mean, that's what you do. You learn from your mistakes. You know, you'd rather than make them now than in September. Russell Wilson's getting acclimated. I mean, I know he's a veteran, and I still have all the confidence in the world in Russell Wilson. But he's learning a new playbook. He's learning his teammates. He's learning the receivers. He's learning just like everybody else, and this is the time to do that. So I don't know why people blow this out of proportion, Chris. Do OTAs matter in the least bit when it comes to quarterback position?
No, I said it last week when I was talking to Anthony about it, and I said you will never see me get excited or mad about OTAs. Like Jackson Dart could go out there and throw 20 touchdowns in a practice. I'm not going to tweet about it. I'm not going to care much about it because it's practice at the end of the day. And the same thing with the interceptions. I will never get too high, too low. And for everybody that's frantic and panicking about this, how many times has Russell Wilson thrown a pass in a Brian Daboll offense or to any of the receivers on the New York Giants football team? How many times has Jameis Winston thrown a pass to any of the wide receivers on the New York Giants football team or played in a Brian Daboll offense? How many times has Jackson Dart done it? So, like Anthony said, like Adriana said, they're learning. That's what practice is for. That's why they're there at OTAs. They're there to learn. They're there to get mistakes out of the way and grow as football players. So you expect bumps in the road, especially with a rookie quarterback. And the whole Shedeur Sanders thing to me, I could give 2 craps about what he does with the Cleveland Browns. And he's with the third team, like Anthony said. He's not even going up against first teamers. They're in shorts. I think he's gonna be a good quarterback. I liked him, but at the end of the day, if Jackson Dart works out, nobody's gonna give a crap. So let's see how it plays out. But I'm not gonna get too high or too low. The most important thing for me with OTAs, the locker room, and do we get out of it healthy? Is everybody healthy going into training camp? And I'm pretty much going to have the same mentality when it comes to training camp. You like to hear, that the team's doing well, but at the end of the day, we all know that you can't really judge the team till you see them out there on the field week 1. I mean, we've seen it the last couple of years, right? I remember after they made the playoffs, the year they made the playoffs with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, 2022, at least from my recollection, the training camp reports were putrid. They were destroying the New York Giants offense. I remember beat reporters saying it was the worst they've seen a Giants offense. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating a bit in a training camp in a very long time. Giants went on to make the playoffs that year. The next year, I remember hearing nothing but great things in training camp about how Daniel Jones was growing in the offense, how much better they looked. They lost 40-0 week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. So I put very little stock into the OTAs or even training camp or even preseason. You want to see them grow for sure. You want to see the offensive line gel and get some reps together. And I think as a fan, it's fun to be excited about the upcoming season and to see how they're utilizing some of the players, whether it be first team, second team reps. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to get too high or too low off a practice report.
I just want to say real quick, where is everyone getting Shedeur Sanders information? Like, is everyone following the Browns and their beat writers? Because I've been on Twitter the last couple of days, haven't seen anything about Shedeur Sanders. And the only tweets that I have seen about the Browns from the national media were, the first thing I saw was about Myles Garrett, and he was asked about how he feels about Aaron Rodgers and how he's going to welcome him into their division. And he said that he can't wait to put him in a graveyard. So I am taking the over on Myles Garrett sacks this year, would recommend that everyone does the same. And then the second thing I saw was Joe Flacco saying that he doesn't understand why people do TikTok dances because they're full-grown adults and they should act like them. So I'm like, is everyone just has keywords set up for Shedeur Sanders so they can just track him versus Jackson Dart? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I read that too, that there's some reports from the Browns that the locker room is kind of split. Like, the younger teammates are kind of siding with Shedeur and the older teammates are kind of siding with the veterans like Joe Flacco. But I don't really care. I just see people that I follow, I guess, retweet this stuff, so it shows up on my feed. But I could care less about the Cleveland Browns training camp.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I get the stuff on my page. I'm like, why do I care about Shedeur Sanders? He's not a Giant. And Adriano's point, to begin with, Jackson Dart's not the starting quarterback, so who cares? I mean, it doesn't matter. He's going to learn, and he's going to learn most of the year, and he's going to sit, and he's going to watch, and he's going to study, and he's going to learn, and he's going to learn, on the job training. He's going to be an apprentice, so to speak. And he probably will get some games at the end of the year if we're out of it. But until December, he's not going to play unless he's absolutely forced into duty, because we all know we had, 3 starting quarterbacks get injured last year. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. That happens to us, it seems, more than anybody else. But I'm not concerned about any of this stuff. I feel like that's where you're supposed to make your mistakes. You're supposed to learn. You learn from your mistakes. That's what training camp is for. So OTAs are for. You learn timing. You learn the playbook. You learn what to do, what not to do. And you take all that you learn in training camp, OTAs, minicamp, all this stuff. You take it, you bring it to the field on Sundays in the fall and in the winter. That's when it matters. None of it matters now. But again, we are in June, and there's not much to talk about. And I think some people are just reaching for anything to say. Yeah. That's why they just bring up the whole, Shedeur's looking really good, and Jackson Dart sucks. Like, I had somebody put on my page the other day, how's Jackson Dart working out for you? I don't respond to it, but I'm thinking to myself, what the hell do you mean? What do you mean, how's it working out?
June.
Oh, it just hasn't even put on pads yet. It's ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. Some people are psycho. I'm going to do this real quick. Normally I get to the super chats at the end of the show, but I actually wanted to ask this question today because I saw that for the World Cup, they put grass on MetLife Stadium. So Chris, thank you for super chat. He said, "Do you guys see the new grass they put down in MetLife?" Anthony, we have had so many injuries, and not just the Giants, other players and other teams have complained about how bad the turf is at MetLife Stadium. The Jets also play there. We know that they lost Aaron Rodgers in 4 plays, went down to a torn Achilles tendon. Is there any possibility the Giants would ever consider putting grass in the field? Their argument, obviously, is 2 teams play there. It'd be hard to take care of it. But they're able to do it for other events like the World Cup. So why don't they do it at MetLife Stadium?
The funniest thing to me is the MetLife Stadium turf narrative is the most manufactured and bogus one in the NFL. If you look at the actual data of injuries at MetLife Stadium, since they replaced the turf, now 3 years ago when the 49ers had several injuries, that was bad, and the turf was really bad that season. But they replaced the turf 2 seasons ago. Since then, the New York Giants have had, I think, 2 torn ACLs on their entire roster. Both came away, one of them on grass, being Daniel Jones versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And also Aaron Rodgers getting his Achilles popped to the 4th play of the game. Maybe he should have just went down and not tried to run with a 300-pound man on his back. Like, I don't know how you blame the turf for a contact injury. It wasn't even a non-contact injury. The Giants have been one of the least injured ligament teams in the league, and the majority of their ligament injuries have actually come off of turf and on grass. So I don't think the Giants are going to change their turf at any point because there's no data that suggests they should. In fact, the data suggests they have one of the healthiest and cleanest playing surfaces in the entirety of the NFL over the last 2 seasons since they changed their turf with the new technology that they invested hundreds of $millions into to bring this new turf to MetLife Stadium. So it's a healthy playing surface. It's an efficient playing surface. And like you said, they do have two teams playing there. So having grass is not realistic, especially because it's also a multi-purpose facility and they have a lot of other things going on like concerts. The Weeknd was just there and all these other artists. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think that it's just one of those narratives. It's completely anecdotal. Like when people say, oh, the turf is so bad, they think to a few years ago when it was bad and they can't recognize that there is data that suggests it is actually, and you always should go by the data. Like what do the stats and the facts say? It says it's one of the best playing surfaces in the NFL.
Chris, to go another route here with the grass, and Anthony, I know you said it's kind of a narrative, but the NFLPA executive director, this is what I was reading before we went live, said that 92% of players actually prefer grass fields over turf. And this is why maybe it's not feasible for the Giants to do it, because although two teams own the stadium, and you would think they should be able to share the cost of it, because of say pressure of the NFL, like the Players Association. Do you think it's possible the Giants do have grass there in the future, or do you think Anthony is right that they're just going to always have that turf and they'll just make improvements on the turf as they go along?
I don't know. I honestly don't know if they're always going to have the turf, because of course they had grass there at one point before they switched to that awful turf. So I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility that they may go back to grass at some point, but I wouldn't expect it in the near future, based off of all the costs that they made making the alteration to the new turf. I remember I made a video on that because I was actually interested in that topic when the Giants did switch to the new turf, and I forgot what it was, but the injuries that took place on the old turf that the Giants had been replacing, not just with the Giants, with several other teams that had moved from it. I remember I think the Lions had also moved to the turf the Giants currently have the year prior, and it reduced their injuries. But injuries on the old set of turf that the Giants had were significantly higher, not just for the Giants, but other teams that had that turf. So the Giants invested in it. I didn't know about those stats. Anthony brought up some good numbers there, but it makes sense when you think about it. We haven't had a lot of, I guess, ligament injuries over the last couple of years. So based off of that, and based off of the amount that they invested in it, I wouldn't expect them to go grass anytime soon. The two-team thing I think is nonsense because, like you said, why can't the teams just split the cost? That never made a whole lot of sense to me. I know that they have other events there like concerts and everything else, and, it's more than just, the teams on the football field. So I think soccer teams play there, or maybe they don't anymore. Maybe they got their own stadiums now. But I would prefer grass. I think most players would, like you just said, 92%, I think you said. But at the end of the day, do I see it happening? No, not in the near future, at least. Just based off the money that the Giants invested in the new turf.
Jenna, you think that it matters? Do you think they should play on grass? Do you think they should play on turf? You don't think it matters? Like, I don't know if it matters that much, honestly. I know the original turf there was awful. I do know I remember, Chris, we probably did talk about that last year, was that they made massive improvements to the turf, when it happened. But, seems like the players like.
When I did research on the old turf, it used to be like, I'm not giving the right term, but the old turf was like,
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was like twisted together where the cleats would get stuck in it, and the new turf was kind of like blades like natural blades that stick straight up. So when I read that, I'm like, well, that makes a whole lot of sense why you would change from one to the other.
You think they'll ever change the grass?
I don't know. Maybe sometime in the future, maybe if the Giants end up ditching the Jets and getting their own stadium again, they would go back to grass. But my thing is two things. I think the first thing is a lot of fans forget that they switched out the turf, because I still hear from fans on a regular basis, people complaining about it, that we always have so many injuries and it's because of the turf. And, the argument that I always have too is like, well, why don't Jets players get injured at the same rate as Giants players do? They play on the same fields. And then the second thing is, though, they just spent all of this time and money to put grass in at MetLife. So I'm like, you guys can't just keep it. Like, you're really going to revert back to the turf that you had that is probably already a couple years old at this point? Or are they just going to put in new turf that is the same style as the old turf? I don't understand. And we know that we have two teams that pay for it, but they also lease MetLife Stadium from MetLife Insurance, who makes a shitload of money. So you're going to tell me between the three of them, they can't afford, I don't want to hear that it's a monetary thing from them, because that's the biggest amount of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. You have 3 different income sources and 2 teams that make billions of dollars. Like, don't tell me you can't afford it. I don't think that's a real issue. I think they hide behind that. But, if 92% of players want to play on grass, then I think that's something that they have to consider for the future. And, if they are going to stay at MetLife and they're going to plan to be there for the long time and share it with the Jets, then, I think they just have to figure out some sort of other system for concerts and things like that. Like, can't they just put something down? I mean, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. Someone can figure out the best way to put something on top of the grass so it doesn't injure it every time they have a concert. So I don't know. I think the money thing is BS. And I'm like, give us the real reason, because I don't really think it's about the fact that it's upkeeping that in the Northeast. Like, how many other teams and other stadiums have grass and they can handle all these other teams, concerts, probably not just football. Maybe they have soccer and whatever else. So I think that's kind of crap.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, I haven't thought about the whole grass thing in a while. I mean, I know when they had that really bad turf, that players just seemed like they were getting injured on it before they upgraded on it. Talked about grass all the time. I mean, I'm an old school football fan. I can tell you that other turf that they that they added, the old Giant Stadium, that was horrible. It was like a carpet. I mean, that's all it was. Obviously, technology has gotten a lot better over the years, but you would think they maybe would find some solution. Again, when I read the article, just saw that 92% of players, like the NFLPA, was in favor of it. It just made me think, could the Giants ever actually make that change, since they had no problem putting it down for the soccer? Again, I don't know. I look at it this way. I don't think the turf is making our line block like shit. I don't think the turf is making our quarterbacks throw interceptions. I don't think the turf is the reason we're winning, 4 games, 3 games, 6 games a year. But I thought that was interesting because, again, I didn't think about it until I saw that article. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that. Another thing, obviously, and I saw this from a lot of content creators, and you guys probably know, Jaire Alexander was let go by the Packers. The Giants could always use depth in the secondary. We know that our secondary was massively improved this offseason with the addition of Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland. Drew Phillips should take a step forward. Tyler Nubin, Dane Belton's look good. I wouldn't say I'm extremely confident in our second, but I feel good about it. Chris, is Jaire Alexander a guy that the Giants could consider signing here, bringing in here?
No. Not unless he's willing to come here for like nothing. You already invested so much in that secondary in the offseason to begin with. I know a lot of people are out on Banks. I would like to see Banks get an opportunity to grow. He was a really young player when we drafted him. He was a guy that I think we've all said we love his tools. He just needs to develop much better ball skills, and maybe with not being the CB1 this year, he could grow as a player. Drew Phillips looked really good in his rookie year. Of course, I'm always for adding more talent, but I don't think Jaire Alexander is going to come here for nothing. And I think we've invested enough in that position this offseason. If anything, I'd prefer us to get a wide receiver or an offensive lineman. Not that I expect that, but no, I'm not a fan of signing Jaire Alexander.
Also, he's been injured a bit too, and I just think
the past couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to bring someone in, like, you want to bring them in because they're reliable. And if, God forbid, someone goes down, they're going to be ready to go. Or if you want to start him and Adebo, and you're going to have Banks be the backup, you can't worry about him getting injured. We already have that being an issue. And I also think, what we've seen from Joe Schoen up until this point is that he hasn't entirely valued the secondary. Adoree Jackson didn't get paid the money, and he was great 2 years ago with Wink System. And then last year, they didn't even sign him until week, I think, 5, because Banks was playing so poorly that they finally brought back Adoree. They didn't re-sign McKinney. They didn't bring in any other big veteran secondary piece until this year, until they really kind of got screwed, I guess, and realized that maybe they should invest in the secondary. And I think after all the money that they spent on Adebo and Holland, I would be shocked if they're willing to spend a lot of money on another veteran cornerback. I just think the plan is, we spent this money on a Debo. We feel confident that he's going to be able to cover the ones and Banks is going to cover the twos. And then, we're good with Flott and Drew Phillips and Art Green and some of the other guys that they have on the roster to see about rotations or backups. Like, I would really be surprised if they were willing to spend on another veteran after what they've done the last couple of years. And this year being the first year that they were like, okay, we're going to pay a safety and a corner.
Yeah.
Anthony, any possibility he's a Giant?
I don't know how strong the possibility is, but I do disagree. I think that they should at least check in and pursue it. In terms of the money, I can't see how this guy makes anything more than a 1 year, $10, maybe $5 million deal. He's been injured the last 2 years. I don't think he gets paid. Nobody's given him a long-term extension. He was on the trade block all offseason. Nobody wanted to trade for him because they didn't want to pay him money. So he's not going to get money. He's going to get $5 million, $10 million, something like that. And the Giants, yeah, they're tight against the cap right now, but they can easily make another $5 million if they so needed to bring in a potential all-pro talent. And with the injuries, he played 7 games last year. He played 7 games the year before. And I know that that's obviously a pretty damning statistic, but in those 7 games, he's still an elite player. And if you have another elite player on this defense for 7 games, that probably adds another couple of wins to your win column that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been there. And another couple of wins puts you closer to playoff contention. And this is a regime that needs to make the playoffs this year, at least come pretty damn close. So I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be trying to pursue a talent like Jaire Alexander. And for Deonte Banks and Paulson Adebo, first of all, Paulson Adebo has never been a CB1. He is a CB2 that the Giants are trying to develop into a CB1. He played CB1 for a handful of games last year when the Saints traded Marshawn Lattimore, and then he broke his leg. So he's coming off of an injury as well. Question mark there potentially. I'm still confident in Debo, and I'm confident in Deonte Banks, but should I be confident in Deonte Banks? Has Deonte Banks actually given anything for us to be confident in on the football field over the last 2 years? He's a major question mark, and I don't think that the Giants should ever stop themselves from adding more proven talent to the roster because they have potential on their roster. A player with potential shouldn't stop you from bringing in an experienced 2-time second-team All-Pro at a less than $10 million price tag, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this, though, Anthony, and I agree with a lot of what you said. That's why I said for the right price, and $5 million is nothing, I'd be open to it. But if you're Jaire Alexander, there's going to be a lot of teams that are willing to pay you $5 million. Why would you pick the New York Giants?
So I think it's a good question. That's why I said I just said it's a possibility, but I don't think it's a probability. But for Jaire Alexander, if I were the Giants, my sales pitch to him would be, look at our defensive line on paper with Abdul Carter, with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau. We've also got Javon Holland behind you. We've got Tyler Nubin behind you. And we've got Bobby Okereke and Mike McFadden in the middle of the lineup. This is a defense that on paper, the only question mark truly is the cornerback position. Again, we like Paulson Adebo. That was an upgrade. I could see Deonte Banks taking a step forward this year. Still, both of those players, they have their question marks. The only position on that defense that would hold it back from being a top 10 or even a top 5 unit at this point would be the cornerback position.
I disagree with you on
That's
that.
how I feel about it.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I have question marks about the linebacking core, the inside linebacker, especially with how we've played against the run the last couple of years. I'm not saying they could be good, but I don't think that's a lock that we have a great linebacking core.
I think Okereke is a top 10 player at his position in the NFL. And I think that Micah McFadden is a damn good starter too. I think the only one that doesn't have an established top 10 starter somewhere, because I think you could even make the case for Holland being a top 10 safety when he's healthy. Only position is cornerback. So I think the sales pitch to Jaire Alexander is you could be the only missing link to turning this defense from good to the best in the NFL overnight if you were to stay healthy somehow, Jaire Alexander. And then on offense, we just added a Super Bowl champion and future Hall of Fame quarterback. There is a clear and obvious upswing happening here for the New York Giants. Get on board now because you won't be able to next year because all these players are going to take off. So that would be my sales pitch to Jaire Alexander. And again, sales pitch to Giants fans. If you did plug Jaire Alexander in there, even for 10 games this season, think about what a monumental upgrade that could be and how many wins that could add to the win column and how that could actually push the New York Giants potentially into the playoffs.
Good pitch, Anthony. But if I'm Jaire Alexander, I'm going to the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to a team that could compete to win a Super Bowl. But good pitch, Anthony.
That was a good sell. I also have 2 things that I think might help some people feel a little bit better about Banks because I've been shitting on him relentlessly lately. And then I just talked to Patty Traina and she gave me 2 good things. And I was like, okay, this is fair. The first thing is that when Banks was really good his rookie year and only gave up 4 touchdowns, he was covering wide receiver 2s. Adoree was on the 1s. And I think a lot of us forgot about that. And that's, I think, part of the reason why he was as good as he was his rookie year. I also think Wink's system had a big part of it. But then last year, obviously, they were like, oh, well, he's good enough. He's going to cover the 1s. And we all saw what a disaster that was. So I think he's going to go back to covering the 2s now that we have Paulson Adebo, who's going to be on the 1s. And I think that that is going to help Banks again. And the second thing is, it sounds like him and not Andre Patterson. Oh my God, who's the Henderson, who got, Jerome Henderson, who got fired, who was the cornerbacks coach. Him and Adoree Jackson, oh my God, him and Banks obviously had some issues. So I think also the fact that he's gone, they brought in a whole new coach who has a lot of experience with good defensive backs, I think is really going to help Banks kind of take that step forward. And the third thing is that Bowen in his press conference was asked about Banks and said that which I was like, interesting that you're admitting this. He seems very engaged in all of the meetings. He's asking a lot more questions, and he just seems like he's more invested this year than he was last year. And I think that between him and Hyatt, I think they're coming off rough years, but I think that they both had an attitude adjustment, which I think is really important. And I think with Banks, that was half the battle. And I think with Henderson being gone, that's going to make a big difference for him. So I'll be. I
agree. I'm up on Deonte Banks this year. I think he's going to have a good year. I do. I really do.
I think the biggest thing is just the pressure, maybe that he's not going to always have to cover Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and all of these.
Right, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, right, Terry McLaurin, all the ones. I just wish we've discussed this before about Deonte Banks. It's not like his coverage skills are bad. His coverage skills are good, but he doesn't locate the ball at all. And if he located the ball, he'd be such a better cornerback. Because again, these wide receivers in the NFL, especially your elite wide receivers, which 2 of them play in our division, and Lamb and AJ Brown. These guys are big, they're strong, their catch radius is ridiculous, they're great with their hands, they make adjustments in the air. I mean, you really got to play the ball and not the receiver when you're playing against those guys. You might be able to get away with it against wide receiver 2 on other teams because they're not CeeDee Lamb, they're not AJ Brown. So I do think Deonte Banks will be better. I think it is confidence. And again, a cornerback, I think confidence is so huge. I think confidence always plays a big part, but I think outside of the quarterback, they say a cornerback has to have a very short memory. So I think sometimes when you get beat down, you just start playing poorly, and maybe that happened to him last year. He had a pretty good rookie season, and he definitely took a step backwards. So maybe his confidence was shaken, and he just didn't play well. I mean, the whole team didn't play well last year. But to Anthony's point, I'm definitely going to at least try to talk to Alexander because I don't think he could have enough depth on the team. And if you went into the year with Alexander and Adebo as your 2 corners, you got to feel pretty good about that. Not that I'm saying Deonte Banks can't take a step forward, but can you imagine having Deonte Banks as a depth piece, or maybe Alexander's a depth piece if Deonte Banks beats him out in training camp? But it would be awesome to have a really solid cornerback room to go with the safeties, who obviously are massively improved. Newman, I think I had a hot take, said he's going to lead the team in interceptions this year. So I don't know. There's nothing wrong with exploring it. There's nothing wrong with it.
I agree. Nothing wrong with exploring it. I'd be stunned if it happens. But
I'm not saying that he's going to go, yes, give me the 3-14 Giants. I don't want to go to Buffalo. I'm not saying that he's going to do that.
I'm of the belief that the only way he comes here is for the higher price tag or more that Anthony suggested. $10 million. I don't think he comes here for $5 million because I just think at that point, go to a team where you can compete to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, about $8 million.
I'm not going to scream if they do it. Like he obviously has potential. You're worried about the injuries the last 2 years. I don't know. Maybe I'm higher in Banks than I should be. I like Deonte Banks. I really do. I've liked him since we drafted him. I know he took a step back last year, but I think in a more reduced role, I think he's going to have a good year this year, and I don't want to hurt his development. They already invested a lot in the secondary. That's just my mindset on it. But I'm not against Alexander for a really cheap price.
Yeah. No, it's understandable. Listen, I don't think you'd have enough depth anywhere. No. I think depth is extremely important. I mean, every team deals with injuries, but the year that we went to the playoffs, our major players stayed healthy all year. Jones, Barkley, Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence. makes a big difference when your main guys are healthy. Let's hope that happens this year. The health is going to be the biggest point. You mentioned it earlier, Chris. OTAs, training camp, minicamp, just get out of it healthy. Preseason games, just get out of it healthy. This is all we ask. At least go into the season with a fighting chance. But we've talked about it before with playing in the preseason. You got to play some games. You got to build some rapport. We talk about it. OTAs don't matter. Training camp don't matter. Like, it don't matter if you make your mistakes there. And it doesn't matter if you make mistakes in preseason, but at least then you're going against other football teams and not showing. While the defenses are going to be vanilla and they're not going to show you these exotic blitz packages and everything else, it's good to play against competition, but you should be able to build some rapport with your players, get the timing down, understand the cadence of the quarterback, because Russell Wilson is going to have a different cadence than Daniel Jones had. Build the rapport between the center and the quarterback, between Russell Wilson and Jalen Hyatt, Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors. Get them some reps together against NFL competition, not just against your own team. You're not going to play your own defense in the in the regular season, so get them some snaps.
I'm just curious. Have they announced? Because obviously they did in more recent years. They did the joint practices. I remember. I think it was last year they did it with the Lions. Have they announced that they're doing that this preseason? They did. They have. Yeah. Okay. Good. I like
Jets.
The Jets. Yeah, they're doing two with the Jets. One at Quest. One at Florham Park.
Good.
3+ fights.
Yeah, there'll be. Yeah. That brings me to our sponsor over there, BetUS, right there. Go over to BetUS, guys. Check them out. They have a great promotion going. Enter the promo code YouTube150. Get a 150% match deposit bonus on your first deposit. 125% match deposit bonus on your second and third deposit, all the way up to $2,000 bonus cash. Great customer service, 24/7, 365. You get payouts within 24 hours, and you also get 10% gambler's insurance against all your net losses, as long as you stay active every 6 months. Terms and conditions apply. When you gamble, we ask that you please do it responsibly. You never bet more than you can afford to lose. What did the graphics team come up with today? Something very different.
Let's see.
The next 88 great. Bryce Ford Wheaton.
Well,
what are the odds he makes the team? But I like Adriana's over under 3 fights for the Jets and Giants. In one practice, I can see it happening.
No question. The thing is, like, as soon as it starts, that's going to set it off. So if it happens early on in practice, they'll do the best that they can to contain everyone. But I just think whoever starts it, it's going to continue on until they shut down practice. And if one starts early, forget it. There will be more than one, no question.
Yeah. What do you guys think Bryce Ford Wheaton makes the team? We have heard about Bryce Ford Wheaton for years. And I'll be honest, I haven't heard anything about him.
This is his third year with the Giants, Bryce? Yeah. I don't think he'll make
He's coming off, I think, that shoulder, or no, was it ACL? I'm pretty sure he's coming off of some injury, but he plays special teams, so I think him having that advantage could help him make the team. And we've talked about this too with the wide receivers. Outside of the top 3, there's some decent competition there, but I think there's not really a clear winner. I mean, I think we all would probably say Jalen Hyatt is going to be number 4 just because they drafted him. They traded up to draft him. Russell Wilson believes in him and, is getting the most out of him, or whatever he says in every press conference. And, but outside of that, I mean, they usually keep 7 wide receivers. So there's definitely some.
At least 6.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a special team. That could happen.
Well, I'm looking at it. Obviously, the 4 we know are locks to make the team. You have to figure Smith Marset makes the team, right? He's a kick returner. He did a great job.
Yeah, he was good. He was actually good for us last year.
So that's 5, and then I mean, he may sneak on, I guess, as the 6th or 7th guy, depending on how some of these veterans may do. But by no means am I expecting Hakeem Nicks out of the number 88.
Right. I love that they got all the jerseys on him. They got like the 1986 Giants jersey on him over there on the left. That horrible 100th year anniversary jersey on him in the middle.
What an awful looking jersey. Maybe
so bad, isn't it?
Can we all agree on that? I hate that jersey.
I don't like it.
I just feel like it could have been done so much different. And if you were going to do that, you couldn't have done a blue, white, or red pant. Literally anything would have been better than the gold.
Yeah, I don't know who put that color scheme together. And at the end of listen, week 1 was as ugly as those jerseys. So hopefully we never see those again.
By the way, I need to get your guys. I think I know Bad Dog's take on this because we've talked about it. I haven't talked to you guys about it. It seems to be people are incredibly split on the old school red only Giants jerseys that they used to have back in like the early 2000s. I hate them. Some Giants fans love them. I've talked to Giants fans.
I love them.
Yeah, so that people are split on that. I don't know. It just doesn't feel Giants to me. I don't know. But you do. A lot of people agree with you that they love those jerseys. They want to bring them back.
I like it as like an alternate. Like I think our color rush being white is so boring. Like I like the color rush jerseys. I think they're fine, but you've got Seattle who's got neon green and these other teams who have orange. Like white is not a color rush to me. Why would you not pick red? I love the red jerseys. I have a red Eli Manning one. It's one of my all-time favorites. I feel like that with the white pants is so sharp. They have those red helmets. They could be bringing those back. And I know people's arguments is like, oh, we're big blue, not big red. I get it. But again, they should be playing up the color rush aspect. They have red in part of their uniforms and part of their jerseys. It's in all of the hats and shit. Like it's one of their colors. So why don't
that's why I brought it up, because I know people are passionate on either side. So that's why I brought it up. I was curious to get.
I feel very strongly about the red jersey.
I actually disagree with you. I love the white color rush jerseys. Those are probably my second favorite jerseys of the New York Giants. I like the ones that they brought back, the alternate
classics.
The legacy.
This one.
I actually really like the old white color rush jerseys. I think they look clean, but I get the arguments that you made.
Anthony, you got a prep? You have a thought of the red jerseys?
I'm indifferent towards them. I don't love them. I don't hate them. I think they're just kind of whatever. But I think generally speaking, it's time for the Giants to do something to update the uniforms. They obviously made the change from gray pants to white pants a few years ago. I liked the change for the home uniforms. I think it pops, but I don't really love the all white look on the road with just the red candy cane stripes. So, and I just think it's been, how long has it been? 21 or 22 years now that the Giants have been wearing this uniform set. I think it's one of the longest running uniform sets in the NFL. I think they're due for some sort of an update here. And especially if we're talking about adding an alternate, they haven't had an alternate that wasn't a prior iteration of a uniform that they wore years ago since the red jerseys. So I think it is time for them to do something to update the uniforms.
Yeah. I didn't really care one way or the other. I wasn't a fan of the red jerseys, but I feel like it's because every time we wore them, we lost. That was really the way I looked at it. Eli says it best. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious, and I swear to God, we never played well in them damn red jerseys. I swear we did not. Now, recently, we haven't played well in any jerseys, so I don't think it matters. I never really got into the jerseys at all. I do love
it. Dog, if they can wear trash bags if they're winning football games.
Yeah, I love the color rush jerseys. I think they're awesome. But I do love the legacy jerseys the best because those are the jerseys I grew up with. And, those are my fondest memories of the Giants. When I started watching with my dad and learning them out of the game, and they were really good at that point, and they were really dominant. And I like to get back to that. But like you said, Chris, I don't care if they're wearing trash bags. I don't care if they're wearing parkas. I don't care if they're wearing tutus. Just win. I don't care what the hell they're wearing.
Now, if you're going to make alterations to the jerseys, which I think eventually, obviously, they will, don't do what the Jets did. I hated the Jets. They looked like college uniforms to me. I feel like they tried to modernize them. It didn't feel like an NFL, for me at least. That's what I thought.
They're the Jets. I don't know what to say. They're the Jets. They nothing they do works. At least we've had some things work, but nothing the Jets do works ever. They're the Jets. The Jets will jet. It's what they do.
It's true.
Cy Guy Bry says, where are we? I'm anxious to see what tight ends make the final 53. Do you think Daboll, Kafka, Wilson will actually throw to them? Adriana, what do you think the tight end's role is going to be in this offense? Do you think it expands at all with Russ back there and Theo Johnson hopefully healthy this year and drafting Thomas Fedoni, or do you think it's kind of the way it's been with Brian Daboll where they're just kind of there, they make their catches, but they don't really make a true impact in the game?
I think it all depends on the offensive line, because I think the last 2 years we would have seen a lot more out of the tight ends, especially Daniel Bellinger and Theo Johnson. Like, the front office did their research and drafted these guys. They were supposed to be their tight ends. Daboll is the 2 tight end set guy. And, it just hasn't really panned out because they've been forced to do a lot of blocking. Yeah. So I think that this year, if the offensive line is blocking well enough, we are going to see guys like, Manhurts, who I think should have had 2 touchdowns last year. I think they were both called back, or one of them was called back. So he was involved a little bit in the passing game, but he is a good blocker. But I think we're going to see a lot of him, Theo, and Belly. I think those are the 3 guys that make the roster. And I think that Dulcich and Fidoni are going to be practice squad guys. But I think we are going to see a lot of them. I think it just depends on how the team starts out. It would not surprise me one bit if Manhurts is in as the blocking tight end and Theo's being used as a receiver. And then they kind of rotate that depending on how things go. But, most of these tight ends are well over 6 feet tall. And it's a nice benefit to have huge targets for the quarterback, especially in the red zone. So, it's been disappointing that we haven't really been able to see a lot of play out of them. But some of the things that I have seen from OTAs include Theo Johnson catching a touchdown, and, Fidoni was involved today. So I have seen notes here and there from the OTAs that the tight ends have been involved. So I do expect to see that. I think it's just unfortunately going to depend on the offensive line more than anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Anthony, what do you think? Do you think any of them make an impact on the offense this year?
Yeah, I know the Giants are really high internally on Theo Johnson, and they're trying to position him to be the starting tight end this season. They all anticipate a breakout from him, and honestly, I do too. I don't think the breakout is going to look as extreme as Giants fans hope it does, but I think he could realistically go for about 500 yards and a few touchdowns. And I think you have to keep in mind, he's got Russell Wilson throwing him the ball, and Russell Wilson historically has a tendency to maximize tight ends and really feed tight ends. I think a lot of that has to do with him being a shorter quarterback and just taking the clear and obvious check down in front of him, being the 6'8" tight end in Theo Johnson. I imagine he's going to get a lot of targets this upcoming season from Russell Wilson. And in terms of which tight ends might make the roster, I actually think Daniel Bellinger is going to be the odd man out, because I think they've got some decent depth there, and they've got a lot of guys who have been making plays in OTAs, and that's going to continue going into training camp. And almost all of the options are cheaper than Daniel Bellinger. I think he is the most expensive tight end on the New York Giants roster, and they'll save $3.5 million from cutting him. So as much as I really like Daniel Bellinger and think he's a pretty good player and showed a lot of potential in his rookie season, obviously hasn't realized that potential since then. And with Theo Johnson now positioned to be the starter, I think for the backup position at tight end, the Giants will likely try to shed some money there and go with a cheaper option.
Chris, you think any of these tight ends make an impact offensively this year? Because I don't remember the last time we had a tight end make an offensive impact. Was it Martellus Bennett? Like, who the hell's the last tight end that we had? Shockey? No, Bennett was after Shockey.
You got Boss. You got, Boss was pretty good. Jake Ballard was pretty good, but we're going way back. Yeah, looking at the tight ends on the roster, I think Theo Johnson, I've said I wouldn't be stunned if he's the second best weapon in this offense this year. So I do think Theo Johnson's going to be, even though I'm leaning more towards Darius Slayton at this point, I do think he's going to have a breakout year. But I think I am a fan of Theo Johnson from what it looked like he was starting to grow in the offense the last couple of games before he got hurt last year. So I think he could have a really big year for the Giants. I am hoping we keep Bellinger. I think all Giants fans really liked what they saw in Bellinger his first year when he had a more expanded role. Of course, we all loved Caden Smith too, and what happened with him after his first year with Daniel Jones. So it could be a similar fate here. I think Fidoni's going to make the roster, because the reason I say that, if you look at the history of Joe Schoen, unless I'm forgetting a player, I don't think there's ever been a rookie he's drafted that didn't make the opening day roster. So I would lean that they may roster 4 tight ends, and the fourth one may be between Bellinger and Dulcich, but I'm hoping they keep Bellinger, and I'm leaning that they will. But if you're asking me which tight end I think could have a big year, yeah, I think Theo Johnson can and will have a big year if he stays healthy. I think he's going to be involved in this offense.
It would be nice to have that threat in the red zone, without question. Definitely a bigger target down there. You can spread the field out a little bit with, Wandale. And obviously you got Malik Neighbors, who's going to command a lot of attention wherever he is in the field, and Darius Slayton. But yeah, Theo Johnson was starting to come on. That's for sure. He's got great size. He ran, he was a sub 4.6 at the combine. He's got size. He's got strength. He's got speed. He's athletic. I mean, obviously the front office is very high on him. So if there is a tight end that's going to break out, it's definitely going to be him. I could definitely see he's going to be the number one option. Thomas Vadoni is very interesting, though. I mean, he's got a lot of skill. We'll see how they utilize him as well. That's what training camps for. I mean, those are fun, seeing some of those camp battles. Theo Johnson is going to be the tight end one, but to watch the depth behind him, to see who comes out on top.
I think that might be the most interesting position group in terms of who's going to make the roster and who's not, just looking at the roster going in. Because the other positions are pretty, I think, pretty obvious in terms of who's more than likely going to make the team. Maybe the back end wide receiver is a bit interesting. The offensive line is pretty cut and dry. I think quarterback's cut and dry. Tight end's interesting because I wouldn't be stunned if Bellinger's cut, which I would hate to see because I'm a fan of Bellinger. I like Bellinger.
Yeah. To Anthony's point, it might just come down to financial reasons.
Yeah.
That unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast, and that happens sometimes. You don't want to get rid of guys, but you have to. Just saw a couple nice comments here. So Cynthia Georgette says, really enjoy this collaborative, and I'm a regular listener. We appreciate that very much. And Michael says, y'all are killing it. Keep up the great job. I love watching all. We love to hear that. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up because that helps us out a lot. Subscribe. We're closing on 5K. We're about 49-20, somewhere in there. But make sure you guys like and subscribe. We appreciate the compliments. I appreciate you watching. It's just not so much talk about. I really look forward to once, at least when we get into training camp, we have these camp battles and we have, some things to talk about. We have some camp fights. We have some position battles and we have some, the naysayers. Russell Wilson has a bad bad day, and he sucks. That was a terrible signing. Or Jackson Dart has a bad day. Oh, he freaking sucks. They should have taken Shador. I always look forward to all that. I love the overreaction of training camp. You mentioned. I think Anthony, you mentioned this earlier. I think it was you that mentioned it about how Daboll. They kind of made the defense aware of what the offense was going to do to make it difficult for the offense. Could you see them doing that again this year to Russell Wilson? Could you see them, kind of tipping the defense as this plays with coming to see if Russ can adjust to it or if Jackson Dart can adjust or whoever the quarterback is? Can you see them doing that again? Or you think they won't do that? They don't want to mess up the quarterback.
Yeah, I think they'll do that. It's part of Brian Daboll's mentality to trick the quarterbacks in a way of testing them. And I trust Brian Daboll. I think he knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. I think that was proven in Buffalo. And I think to an extent it's been proven here as well. I mean, in 2022, Daniel Jones was good enough to go to the playoffs, and he hasn't proven that at any other point in his career. He won 3 games in a row, including a primetime match with Tommy DeVito as his quarterback. Drew Lock had the greatest quarterback performance since Eli Manning last year in Week 17. So I think Brian Daboll knows what he's doing with the quarterback position, and I won't question him there. So if he's got, a way of teaching them that might be a little bit of a failing upwards strategy, then I think go for it. And I think with Russell Wilson, we might see a clear and obvious difference. In fact, I think if Daboll does the same thing, handing the defense the plays that he was handing to Jones, a more experienced quarterback might actually be able to adjust on the fly, that being Russell Wilson. And so I think it'll be maybe something that was overblown in the past and looked at as, a big talking point. But I imagine this is something that a lot of coaches do, and that there are a lot of different ways that they try and trick their quarterbacks in order to help them grow. And I think, as we said earlier, failure leads to growth.
Yep. Chris, tough love by Daboll.
He should. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. I think part of practice is simulating what's going to take place in the game. And in the game, a lot of times, your first and second read aren't going to be available. The blocking is going to break down. So, yes, I think Daboll will and should. I think that's a smart thing to do if you're a head coach in practice. You don't want ideal conditions. You want to test these guys and see how they read the defense and see how they adjust under duress. So I think Daboll should continue to do that. I think that's a good idea.
Tough love, Adriana. What do you think? Give him a little tough love. Throw a tablet at him if he has to. What do you think?
Hopefully not the tablet, especially not this early on. But it wouldn't surprise me one bit if that's what Daboll's doing. And I think we kind of got a little glimpse into that, if you will, when Kafka said, that they try to ramp up the installs to the players who, feel like they can handle it and add more volume there. But, the biggest question that I would have is, how exotic is Shane Bowen getting, right? Like back when this was done the first time, it was Wink Martindale, who's known for throwing all these exotic links and blitzing the shit out of guys. And, Shane Bowen's not that guy. So I'm trying to be optimistic on him, give him a second chance. I, hope there was some more talent. He can be better, but I'm also like, realistically, how exotic is this defense we're looking at? So time will tell, but hopefully it's fun to watch.
Let's get your opinion on this. Greg says Daboll does not know quarterbacks. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Jalen Hurts regressed under Daboll at Alabama. Now he is Super Bowl MVP. I don't care who takes that one. I'm staying out of it because I've had my own discussions about Jalen Hurts for like 3 years. So I don't need to say anything on this. So,
Tua was the one that replaced Jalen Hurts at Alabama.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, Tua was a damn good he was a damn good quarterback with Brian Daboll. Maybe they just felt that Tua fit the offense better. I'm not an Alabama fan. I don't watch them religiously, but I do think Daboll knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. A lot of things that Anthony said. Do I think at times it's a bit overrated? Yeah. When you have Josh Allen, it's hard not to look like you're a great offensive play caller, although we could all recognize also that Josh Allen was a major project, which is a big reason why Brian Daboll was brought along to begin with, because of his effectiveness with quarterbacks at the collegiate level, because they recognized that Josh Allen was a project. But yes, was it a little bit overstated probably when the Giants brought in Daboll? Sure. He was dealing with arguably the most talented quarterback in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills, so that it's easy to make yourself look good. But at the end of the day, kind of like what Anthony said, Daniel Jones' best year as a pro was under Brian Daboll. He won 3 games with Tommy DeVito, although the defense had a lot to do with that. Drew Lock had a good game. With Brian Daboll with a banged up offense. So I do think, I don't know if he's a great head coach. We're going to find out over the next couple of years, hopefully. But I do think he knows what he's doing with the quarterback position, but he needs some tools. And thankfully, he's starting to get them.
Anyone else?
I think that Daboll is overrated as a quarterback guru. And the biggest thing for me is that when he was in Buffalo, he was the offensive coordinator, not the quarterback coach. And when you're an offensive coordinator, you're not solely focused on making the quarterback better. That's why you have a quarterback coach. So how much is Mike Kafka really involved in the quarterbacks? Is he part of the reason why Patrick Mahomes is what he is? I think if you're going to make that argument about, Brian Daboll, I think it's fair to say, well, Kafka was the quarterback's coach when Patrick Mahomes was there. Does that make him a really good quarterback coach? And the other thing with Josh Allen is that I think Daboll absolutely helped his development. I'm never going to deny that. And I think he's a good quarterback coach. I just think it's inflated because Josh Allen is still a damn good quarterback, even with Brian Daboll gone. He's also gotten better the last couple of years with a new offensive coordinator and maybe or not a new quarterback coach. And Josh Allen has also done a lot of work with other private coaches outside of Brian Daboll, who he attributes his success as to why his accuracy has gotten significantly better. There's multiple interviews on this. I've talked about this before, how Josh Allen has said that he worked with a mobility coach who helped him square off his shoulders, move his hips in the right way that improved his accuracy. So I think he's overrated as a quarterback coach.
Anthony, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't think he's overrated as a quarterback coach. I think that he still has a lot of questions to answer, but I just think that with the New York Giants, he hasn't been given a whole lot to work with. Obviously, I was never a big fan of Daniel Jones, and I never thought there was a lot of talent to tap into there, a lot of potential to tap into, rather. And so ultimately, I think that's what the mess was over the last few years. But I guess, to some extent, I agree. To some extent, I disagree. He's been hit or miss in certain moments, and obviously it's been more of a miss with the Giants. But now he's got Jackson Dart. So I'll wait. I'll reserve my judgment and give him the opportunity to prove himself and just hold out hope that the truthers for Daboll are right and that he is able to maximize Dart and turn him into something. So I guess I'll just wait and see.
Yeah, I know we discussed the whole the chicken or the egg. Is it Brian Daboll that kind of held Daniel Jones back, or is it Daniel Jones? Well, we know Daniel Jones because he was pretty good under. I wouldn't say pretty good. He showed glimpses of being really good under Shermer. Then he took a massive step back with Garrett and Joe Judge, and whatever Daboll did, Daniel Jones's numbers weren't great, but they were good enough to get him $160 million. So
Yeah, and
Daboll had some say in that, obviously.
Yeah, and I see Danny Dudds, who's a regular of ours, and we all know he hates Daniel Jones, obviously.
We love Danny Dudds.
Understandably so. He says Daniel Jones had 15 touchdowns in 2022. Why do people act like he was good that year? Well, first off, I didn't say he was good, even though I do think he had a good year. I said Daboll got the best out of Daniel Jones. That is not good that was the best that Daniel Jones has had since he's been in the pros as a 6th-round pick. Sorry, 6th overall pick, I should say. But Daniel Jones was good that year. I'm not saying he was incredible, but he was good. And Brian Daboll, I think, had a lot to do with that. Especially the fact that obviously Saquon Barkley had a lot to do with that. Andrew Thomas had a lot to do with that. I'm not saying it was just Brian Daboll, but the best year Daniel Jones has had as a pro, if you're just going to look at box scores, you'll say, oh, he threw 24 touchdowns in his rookie year. He threw 24 touchdowns, 12 picks. He fumbled the ball 1 million times, and he compiled almost all of his touchdowns in like 5 games against like the
3
worst
games.
teams. Yeah, 3 games against.
Yep, Jets, Commanders, and Lions. He had 13 touchdowns and no interceptions in those 3 games.
Yeah, he was definitely Daniel Jones' best year as a pro was his first year with Brian Daboll. I don't even think that's debatable.
Yeah. Well, again, Jalen Hurts is in a fantastic situation. I don't think it's any question about that. But, yeah, we'll see. I mean, listen, this is Daboll's opportunity. He's got his guy now. He believes in Jackson Dart. Obviously, Daniel Jones was not it. Daniel Jones did not succeed under any of those other, coaches. We lost games. Shermer was fired after, the year that Daniel Jones was rookie. Joe Judge was absolutely pathetic. And, Brian Daboll came in, went to playoffs, won a playoff game for the first time in 10 years with Daniel Jones, throwing to guys like Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins. And they found a way to do it. He got the most out of them. Talent can only take it so far. I mean, talent is talent, and you can't teach talent. You can, you can make their skill set better. You can teach them mechanics. You can do certain things, but you either have it or you don't. He couldn't teach him in here, man. I'll say this till the day I die. Daniel Jones in here is where he's messed up. I don't care. So I don't know that Brian Daboll could ever get that out of him. But it'll be interesting to see what Daniel Jones does in Indianapolis. But I don't think he's going to set the world on fire there.
I don't either. No.
With that said, that brings us to the close of another edition of Giants Collective. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, ring the bell, all good stuff. The show is always brought to us by our good friends at BetUS. Again, you can check us out on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. You can also check us out on TikTok and Instagram. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. I see videos there all the time, so make sure you follow us there. You can also become a member. Just click that join button. You get your name in the outro, monthly member messages, and those really awesome emojis. So we appreciate you tuning in. We will be back on Friday, which I always love because Friday night is the best night. So enjoy the rest of your hump day, everybody. For Adriana, Anthony, and Atana, it's Bad Diggy Dizzle. See you next time. We are out. Peace.